All right, it's been a while since I've gone through the Reddit for Overwatch. This one's going to be a primary focus on the Overwatch Stadium Team AMA that they had today on April 28, 2025, and they answered a lot of questions that you guys probably had about Stadium first. But before I even get into that, just one thing I want to point out is the Overwatch 2 X Gundam Wing collab that they had for their skins. I'm not going to lie, this might be the best looking skin collab I've seen in a long time. Like, honestly, the My Hero Academia, I sleep. Even the Avatar skins, I sleep. World of Warcraft X Overwatch skins, I sleep. These Gundam Wing skins, real shit. Actually, the Transformers one was pretty good too. But here's what they got. This Mercy skin.
Zero system activated.
Ooh-hoo-hoo. Ramatra. Damn. Soldier 76. Reaper. He gets a scythe. A Vitter. Like it's Theater of Blood on RuneScape. Hell yeah. I got mine, by the way, on my Iron Man the other day. Wing Zero Mercy. Look at that. First person POV. Ramatra Epion. Listen, I watched like a few episodes of Gundam Wing here and there. In the English dub as a kid. Tall Geese Soldier. I don't remember too much of it. I just remember they were cool looking mechs. Death Scythe, Reaper, looking amazing. I've asked some Gundam fans what they thought about this collab, and they said they did a really good job in terms of like actually transferring their iconic looks onto these heroes. So I asked them because obviously my memory of them and what the Gundams look like and what they represent is a little foggy back in my day, but like now we look at what they did with the Overwatch skins, and honestly, these really cook. I'm not gonna lie to you. All right, let's move on to the AMA now. Okay, from the competitive Overwatch subreddit. Hi, Overwatch's new core game mode Stadium just launched last week. Sure you all had fun trying wacky builds and climbing the ladder. We have an AMA with the following people. We have Dylan Snyder, the senior game designer of it, Blizz Dylan. Sadie Boy, the UI artist. I love the username Sad Boy for Sadie Boy. Sad Boy. We have Shedrick for Simon Hedrick, the QA. Daniel Duffin, the test analyst. Ben Trauman, the data analyst. We have Bruce Wilkie, lead graphics engineer. Justin Kevel, senior software engineer. Larry Wu, system designer. Toby Vokraut, senior software engineer. KarQ, system designer. And of course, Megan, our dear senior community manager, who's probably making sure these questions are answerable and they pass, okay? One of the most upvoted questions was, how will you prioritize which heroes will be added? What kind of factors affect this? Is it difficulty adapting them to the Stadium format? Is it the popularity of a given hero? Considering you can't change heroes, have you considered prioritizing popular one-trick heroes? Blizz Duffin says, the current plan is to add new heroes to Stadium the mid-season after they release. So for existing heroes, there are many factors that determine which heroes enter the Stadium. While hero popularity is one, gameplay is generally considered first. Kind of like how D.Va was introduced into Overwatch at the same time as Mei was. It's important to maintain healthy game balance when introducing new choices. We hope to get to everyone eventually, but the live game isn't always the best measurement of who should be next, because Stadium's gameplay balance is very different from other live modes. So, from my understanding, every new season then, there will be a new hero, and then there will be a new hero in the mid-season. So obviously Stadium released this whole season and they said they're adding Freja as a mid-season hero. 2 questions. Are you looking at ways of dealing with some stats not being as useful on some heroes? An extreme example being extra ammo on characters like Reinhardt. If yes, how? And question number 2 is, are you planning in the future to rework or even replace some of the powers that heroes have, or are you satisfied with all of them currently? Blizz Connor Kuzi says, we are not looking to make stats like max ammo work with characters like Reinhardt currently. This is definitely a rough edge of the mode, but it is in some part intentional. Having different items shine on different heroes helps create item build variety from hero to hero. A weapon power focused Soldier 76 might build very differently from a weapon power focused Reinhardt because max ammo is not needed or useful. We decided to not hide these items because we want those general items to appear in the same location in the armory no matter which character you're playing. That way you'll be able to learn the layout and become more agile in the armory as you play more. All that being said though, one thing we would like to do in the future is better highlight when a certain stat doesn't provide any benefit to your character. We are looking ways into better explaining how stats like weapon ability power affect each hero. Obviously this is their first iteration of Stadium, but like even as someone who's played a lot of it as well, I think the general items that are across every hero could be at the top, and then there should be like a line drawn under each section where there's like hero specific items below that. Because right now, obviously, if you've played Stadium, you know that the hero specific stuff is at the bottom of it, but like a nice separator would be nice. Number 2, probably like a search function. If I want to search up weapon power, I want to be able to just only filter out all the weapon power stuff or ability power stuff. The idea of them appearing in the same spot no matter what is actually like a pretty good reasoning, to be honest with you. It helps you memorize the rest of the layout for sure, but a separator would be nice, like I just said. And then here, probably just like crossing it out or graying it out when a stat like max ammo has no effect on a hero like Reinhardt or Diva, who has infinite ammo, for example, right? That would probably be a good thing. And then looking into ways to better explain how weapon power and ability power affect is a good thing to say as well, because like sometimes there's different like parts of a kit that could be scaled. For example, if I take ability power on Zarya, I know when you hover over it, it says it affects the barrier, the particle barrier, and the projected barrier, her bubbles, right? But is it just the barrier size? If I have 40 ability power, I want to see what 40 is multiplied on the base value. And it like League of Legends, when you hover over an ability, it'll have like a bracket and it'll show you like the exact number of how much more the bubble can absorb. Also, is the duration of the bubble affected by ability power? Things like that. Or if we take stuff like attack speed on heroes like Mercy, the attack speed actually increases the rate of the healing beam ticking per second, while weapon power also increases the raw number of the healing for her, for example, and the pistol, of course. But like showing that multiplier where the attack speed multiplied by the weapon power in an actual number format, more detail is good, in my opinion, right? You can hide it. The general population doesn't like to look at it, but then you should have an option to toggle like the more detailed version so you know exactly what's happening. No questions, just thanks. It's massively enjoyable. Little heart. I'm only filtering the questions that were answered thus far. There's a couple of good questions that have gone unanswered so far because it's still kind of early, but let's keep going. Can we expect any inspiration to be taken from Stadium items and powers to be used in future updates to perks in the main mode or vice versa? PS, Stadium is awesome. Thanks for all that you do. Falcon Kick answers, I may have pitched a Stadium power as a major perk for a particular hero because I liked it so much, and a version of it may be coming in the future, but I'm not sure I can say which one. Therefore, Flying Reinhardt perk incoming. One of the Stadium powers is a major perk for a hero in the base game. Ooh. Well, technically, I think the Flying Rhine thing isn't even a Stadium power. It's one of those, actually, it's an item that you can buy, but I digress. That's pretty cool. Will heroes who are already released ever get new unique items? Blizz Larry Pickle, aka Larry, says, we will continue to iterate on existing heroes based on the developing meta and data, depending on the issue we want to solve. For example, is a build is unviable or has gameplay issues, it's totally possible that the best solution is to add or rework existing hero items or powers. So the answer is they will probably get new unique items. It's never a hard lock in place. So I see we have a Paris map, and that just leads the Ask Horizon Lunar Colony map when, guys? And then Dylan responds with like a nice little meme. This is basically... Megan asked the question, Blizz Megan and Blizz Dylan responded. This is basically not very subtle hint that a Horizon Lunar Colony map for Stadium in a round-based system, like a rework of it, is on its way. Because obviously you can right now play like Clash and a version of Busan and all these little fun little rework maps. So here you go. Will new heroes be added to Stadium quickly the way Freja will be? Because again, Freja was confirmed for mid-season. So Larry says the current plan is to add new heroes the mid-season after they release. Wait, hold on. This is what he answered earlier. Add new heroes the mid-season after they release. So you're saying if like the new, what is it? The new tank hero? Is it the new tank hero coming out in August? Because remember, it's every other season. Freya was this season. Then season 17 will be a no new hero. And then the following season, sorry, it's the Aqua, the support hero. So you're saying if Aqua comes out in season 18, then Aqua will be available for the mid-season of mid-season 18 for Stadium. I guess that's the better interpretation. That's how I understand this, unless my reading interpretation is terrible. Reading comprehension, excuse me. As Aqua, if you don't know, is that new support who was like the water bender looking guy. That was already teased 2 months ago, so that one, I guess, will be out then. Okay, here's a big one. How does the balancing process for Stadium look compared to the rest of the game? I imagine it's a lot more complicated given that each character is basically 3 in 1. Oh, this is a big question. Okay, Stadium adds many more layers of complexity to Overwatch than the base game has. Economy, bounties, powers, items, a different rank system, tons and tons of depth in play. So in terms of just raw dashboard count, I think we have 3 to 4 times as many ways to look at balance for Stadium than for baseline competitive. So a non-exhaustive list of what we've got considering. We've got the power win percentage of each individual power and the pick rate of the power, item win, item pick rates, hero, the overall hero win percentage and their overall hero pick rates, item pick rates globally, like not considering the hero specific items, economy data, like where are players earning their currency, what are they spending it on, match outcome data, so like how long are the matches, how often do comebacks occur, what is the relationship between economy and outcomes, and many, many more. So the trickiest problem of all of them is what to do with combinations of powers and items or builds, because there are an incredible amount of combinations available in Stadium, but only a few of them might be quote unquote required to comprise what we as players would define as a build. So like what items or powers are required as a core build. This is a unique problem to Stadium that the base game simply does not have. At best, we can make an educated guess about what a build might be before trying to roll up millions of matches worth of data to analyze its performance, but that approach is far too manual, dependent on individual subjectivity, and doesn't scale when we need to rapidly make changes to Stadium to address balance concerns. We needed a way to automate asking the right questions. So, what builds exist for this hero before performing analysis on it? So, is this build performing well? So we do so by pre-treating the data with okay, this is getting a little okay. He's a data analyst. All right, this is I was about to say cluster analysis. I swear I saw this term in my like one stats class I took like 13 years ago in university. We do so by pre-treating the data with cluster analyses on the heroes and their power plus item combinations, which label the players and matches with labels like build 1 or build 2, such that they can be categorized, defined, and aggregated later. We then use various methods like power occurrence, item occurrence, and ability keyword occurrence to describe the build so that we can say things like Junker Queen build 1 is Carnage plus Rampage build that tends to use the Thirsty for Blood item, and be able to say that the Junker Queen build 1 has a whatever win rate or usage rate. This gives us a deeper insight on whether an individual power or item is overpowered, or if it's the combination of several powers and items, not individual, and that's what we could target for nerfs or buffs. I actually really appreciated the in-depth answer from Mr. Captain Planet here, but that seems like that is out of my pay grade. But I actually, you know what's really, you can tell someone really knows what they're talking about if they can explain it to someone in layman terms, where like, I don't know my stats, but like I get what he's trying to say here. But we know it, like it's a lot more technical than this. This is a great way to put it. Since Stadium does not have swapping, how does the team think about design with adding heroes like Pharah or Brawl, who in regular play often demand swapping in order to effectively interact with them? Loving Stadium so far, keep up the great work. In Stadium, we're always striving for players to feel like they have the tools to pick from to adapt to their opponents. We have tried to create hero items that help soften some of the worst matchups. We also try to create answers in general terms. For example, if you're struggling with beam heroes, we've got a lot of ways to get armor to reduce a significant amount of that damage. Additionally, we also try to create builds and powers that are stronger in certain hero matchups. Ultimately, we're trying to create an experience where you feel like you can play the hero you chose in any matchup, even if you're at a slight disadvantage. We know we've not perfectly hit that mark yet, but we will continue to try to add the answers every hero needs. Jeez, I can't read anymore. As we continue to add more heroes to Stadium, we will also update previous heroes to make sure they have the tools needed to combat the newly added heroes. And then expanding on Connor's answer, sorry, Connor was the one answering that first one. Justin, or Blizz Kevil, says, expanding on Connor's answer, one of the core goals of Stadium's design is that we empower you to replace the idea of counter swapping with counter building. So an example of the kind of upgrade we made for this is Genji's anti-beam coding, which you can buy in those Zarya Mei Moira games that ordinarily make you feel like you have to swap off. I think this is the item, sorry, the Genji's anti-beam coding is one where I think if you deflect all beams during that moment. To your point though, we do have our design work cut out for us with Pharah and Brawl, which is why we decided not to include them in the launch roster. Can't speak to any specifics yet, but we're certainly talking about ways we can address these matchups too and make them fun. Why are there new next question, why are there new abilities like Mei's Snowball, or the power colder where she rolls around as a snowball, while others like Cassidy don't have anything new, only options to get either better damage or cooldowns? I really believe one big part of the fun is the new abilities instead of just overpowering the current abilities. Blizz Sadboy says, that's a great question, maybe something to keep in mind for the future, though I keep suggesting that Cassidy should turn into a giant tumbleweed and mosey around, but Dylan said no. Damn it, Dylan, what are you doing? doing? Blizz Larry Pickle says, to provide some design insight on this, one rough guideline we tried to do is have a couple of flashy / transformative powers per hero. We don't always hit the mark on these though, and sometimes during the iteration process, we had to remove them due to gameplay issues, so certain heroes have less. They are the most expensive to develop from an art standpoint and require the most design iteration as well, so no promises for now, but we will be continuing to iterate on all heroes' existing powers and items. Next question is, what is the process for coming up with items and builds for a new hero like, where there may be scrapped ideas for Freja during development that ended up becoming powers later? Do you plan for future new heroes to be fast-tracked into Stadium? Larry Pickle says, we usually start with a set of archetypes that hit on different fantasies or focus on a different part of the hero's kit. Usually we want one core fantasy plus build that typically empowers the core gameplay loop of that hero, and then the other archetypes typically introduce new gameplay patterns or more transformative effects. After we have a set of archetypes, we usually want 2 to 3 core powers to support each of those archetypes, and then the rest are filled out with more flexible powers that are applicable to a number of archetypes. We did turn an early prototype for Freya's ultimate into a power though. I believe the current thinking is to prioritize getting new heroes into Stadium the mid-season after they're released. Next question, awesome mode, loved it. Okay, so Brawl seems to be the clear and obvious best way to play the game. Do you think there are ways to evolve the game past just ramming your head at the other team, or is it just a function of the current roster like Reaper and Ryan, etc.? Also, are there plans for a toggle first-person, third-person button? Navigating to settings isn't the worst, but I wonder if a simple toggle keybind is possible. Shedrick says, I think this largely comes down to which heroes you and your teammates pick. Brawl can absolutely be a viable playstyle, but it tends to leave you vulnerable to counterplay from heroes that have a strong flank game. Ashe is a great example here. If you're going up against a Ryan that is building into shield health, you're going to have a really bad time staying in the backline and pouring ammo into that shield that'll basically never break. But instead, try taking an angle to pressure their supports can be a great way to either get picks or at least force their Ryan to fall back to help. I know, we can all dream for a Ryan peeling. As for the first person and third person toggle, this is not something that we're currently planning on doing, but that doesn't mean it's entirely out of the question. We're always looking for feedback from the community on what they want to see next, and there's nothing stopping us from revisiting a feature if it garners enough interest. Well, I mean, I'm interested. I think everybody else here is interested. I want to be able to dynamically toggle in between each. Hello? I'm community. You guys are community. If you want this, let them know. Hello, I have some questions about Stadium. Number 1, is there any plan to introduce the Stadium into custom games in the near future, perhaps in the mid-season or into next season? And number 2, are there any plans to add consumable items, such as healing kits or temporary buffs to characters, similar to features seen in other comparable projects, aka like League of Legends, like buying like a potion that'll only last the round or something, sinks your money, but it buffs you? Cool. Additionally, would you consider implementing items designed to counter specific heroes? I mean, they already kind of did. I believe this could make build diversity more interesting and help players survive against certain matchups. Blizz Dylan answers, we will have more to share soon, but the short answer is we absolutely want to get custom games for Stadium up and running. In regards for counter specific items, we actually already have some in the game as being able to counter build, as that is actually a key part of Stadium's identity. For both Ashe and Junker Queen, we have items that sort of give them value out of having their wound or burn effects cleansed, because those are core aspects of their kit identity. Similarly, D.Va and Genji were both given options to help tackle beam attacks where they would normally not be able to directly interact with that matchup. We'll continue keeping an eye out for severe cases like those. Items or powers that address them are absolutely on the table. Is there any plan to add ways to generate money from mitigating damage? On tank, it feels really incentivized to play aggressive and not as supportive with like shielding upgrades, as you often end up behind the enemy tank in terms of Stadium cash, which leads to unfun or one-sided games. Actually, a Redditor answered first saying, every shield bot Ryan I've seen has by far the most money in the lobby. I think it's incentivized enough. Blizz Connor Kuzi says, we do not have any plans to grant Stadium cash for mitigating damage. Currently, our Stadium cash generation from damage and healing closely matches to how ultimate charge or perk experience gains work. Part of the reason is that some heroes can mitigate infinite amounts of damage, looking at you, D.Va, and mitigating damage also prevents your opponents from generating Stadium cash, just like it does to ultimate charge, so there is some important currency impact that occurs from damage mitigation. We've actually attempted to give every hero a tankier utility-focused build path that players can actually pivot to if they're falling behind. This is paired with our survival items generally being lower in price as intended to allow you to still be effective for your team even when you're not having your best game. And this isn't just isolated to tanks. I'm sure you've encountered a few, tanky Reapers and tanky Soldier 76s out there. Also, to add to Connor's post, thanks Falcon Kick, we do track where players are earning currency generally from various sources and are keeping track of the rate of currency gain across various heroes and roles. Liz Kevil also added to another answer to this. So they actually feel you on this one with the whole mitigating damage, not giving you cash. Kevil says it was actually one of my first bits of feedback after we added damage and healing based currency, and that we should probably consider adding mitigation currency for this exact reason. And we actually play tested it for a while, but another reason why the decision to not add it, in addition to the other ones Connor mentioned, was that it just sort of felt bad to know that anytime you broke Ryan's shield, you just gave him a ton of money. It was also like an infinite duration Zarya bubble where they just kept the power in between rounds. Oh, so like you're saying, if they just spammed Ryan and they broke his shield because he mitigated 4K, you just know you just granted him like crazy amounts of money by just shooting his shield. So I can sort of see where they're going with that. How do you feel about the fact that current modern gaming communities often focus on heavily min-maxing, or aka optimizing? With the influence of content creators, forums, and other resources, it's now incredibly easy to access quote-unquote broken builds rather than players experimenting and figuring things out for themselves. Because Stadium is currently competitive only, there's a strong incentive to follow the path of least resistance, which indirectly forces players to go with the flow and look up optimized builds rather than encouraging them to create weird, goofy, and less optimal ones. Falcon Kick says, I have some background on both sides of this. Before I joined Blizzard, I created these sorts of resources for the community. And then after joining Blizzard, I've been creating the internal tools we use to stay ahead of this exact behavior. As you've mentioned, players have incredible resources to improve in all aspects of our game, and that's without us really sharing much data at all. In regular Overwatch as well, these sorts of pressures to quote-unquote play optimally will always exist. Our strategy generally has been to keep the game fresh with regular changes to combat this pressure, and also fight against the feeling of staleness in play. Even the most beloved metas, quote-unquote, in the past grew repetitive over time, and we owed it to our players to shake the game up on a regular basis. I believe there is a sweet spot of adjusting hero balance often enough that the game doesn't get stale, but letting things stew long enough for players to master a given state of the game. Ultimately, the most optimal builds, comps, or playstyles start off as goofy at one point or another, and that part in a meta's life cycle is very important. That being said, it's also very fun to play OP stuff, but just not for too long. Goats. It's a tricky line to walk. It's up to us to keep things new, fresh, and changing often enough that the cycle of discovery and mastery is a constant in our game. We're doing the best that we can, learning with every patch. I will say though, our internal tools do indicate that there is, if not a goofy hero plus build, certainly a less popular hero that is actually winning quite handedly that few players are playing relatively, aka Lucio. True, a lot of people are playing a lot of Mercy and Juno. I actually have not seen that much Lucio. Ranking system in Stadia. What successes or issues have you found with how the new ranking system works? Any solutions you're considering to improve the player experience, like matchmaking adjustments, surrender, Mercy options, etc.? Knowing it's not the same as regular ranked, I think part of it is that players need to temper their expectations, but there are also some legitimate complaints as well. Bliss Shedrick says, I think the biggest success we've seen with the rank system is so far as how accessible it is. We really wanted the funnel to be open as wide as possible to give everyone a chance to jump in and have fun right away. For matchmaking in particular, we're always looking for ways to improve on the experience. Because Stadium is a brand new mode, the matchmaker hasn't actually had much of an opportunity to put players where they need to be yet. That being said, things will absolutely smooth out over time as players play more matches and settle into their ranks. Which heroes are the most popular in Stadium right now? So for the damage heroes, Soldier 76 is far out ahead of the rest. However, the rest of the cast are actually fairly close together. For support, Juno is the most picked. The rest are within 15% of her pick rate though, except for Lucio, who is last by a fair margin. But he is actually very good though with a very high win rate apparently. For tanks, similar to Soldier, Reinhardt is decently way ahead of the rest of the tanks, but the rest of them are closely grouped in pick rate. Wow, very interesting. A teaser for Freya being the new added hero to Stadium. Can we get a sneak peek? Short answer is there will be a power for Freya that lets her shoot a powered down version of her ultimate much more frequently. So more bolas coming on out. All right, and that covers the gist of the AMA so far. Hopefully it answered some of the questions you guys had. If you have any more, maybe leave a comment here, and maybe just maybe some of the Blizzard devs lurk some of my videos, and maybe they'll read some of this too. We'll see. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Peace.